Hard, heavy, and hair. Badass music for badass listeners. With Pariah Burke.
Gregg Fox is an accomplished rock keyboardist and composer who has played with some of the biggest in hard rock, metal, country, and pop. He's also the creator of Renaissance Rock Orchestra, a Trans-Siberian Orchestra-sized project featuring members of Yes, Black Sabbath, Skid Row, Dokken, AC/DC, Whitesnake, Guns N' Roses, Survivor, Heart, and more, including 2 Rock and Roll Hall of Fame inductees. RRO combines elements of classic rock, progressive metal, and symphonic influences into a highly energetic and beautiful blend of powerful, spellbinding rock majesty. And RRO is poised to become the next massive rock and roll spectacle, touring not just at Christmas like TSO, but year-round. I recently spoke with Gregg Fox about Renaissance Rock Orchestra, his 7 years spent sailing around the Caribbean, and how the COVID pandemic might just have made Las Vegas the center of rock music in America. I'm Pariah Burke, host of the Hard, Heavy, and Hair Show, and I'm delighted to be joined by Gregg Fox, creator, composer, and keyboardist of a new project, well, a fairly new project that I'm really excited about, Renaissance Rock Orchestra. Gregg, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Pariah. It's good to be here. I appreciate you having me on. Awesome. Excellent. Right on. Yeah. Well, I was checking out some of your stuff. You seem like a wild, crazy guy. I like it.
Thank you. I'm really liking the RRO music.
Oh, thank you very much. I'm glad you're liking it. Yeah. It's we've been working at this for a while and very happy with the last record. And well, I don't know how much you know about the record before this one that we're currently releasing, but it had 27 rock stars on it. I'm not sure if you had a chance to check that out or not. It's called In Times of Old. It has 2 Rock and Roll Hall of Fame inductees on it, and but I'm sure we'll get into a lot of that. Alan White from Yes and Howard Leese from Heart played on that record. Bumblefoot from Guns N' Roses, very cool. Yeah. Simon Wright from AC/DC. Scott Rockenfield from Queensryche. God, it goes on and on and on. It's a pretty amazing list. George Lynch was on that record.
Yeah, I saw that. I just talked to George Lynch the other day. We did an interview about the new End Machine record.
Awesome. Cool. Yeah, I haven't heard it yet. How is it?
It's really good.
Sure it is. Yeah, right. Yeah. All the stuff everybody was working on during 2020. Yeah. So.
Yeah, everybody's just been writing. It's great. You know, and things like this, everyone can work remotely if they need to. And,
obviously, I'm here in Vegas. I play in a lot of other Vegas shows. Those shows include the Led Zeppelin All-Stars, the Moby Dicks with Chaz West and Brian Tishy and those guys, Phil Susanna bass. So I play that show all the time in Vegas. I sub in for Raiding Rock Vault quite often when Michael T's busy doing other things. So those are, some of the biggest things I do in town currently. But every year I play for Bonzo Bash, which is always a lot of fun. And all the Randy Rhoads Remembered shows, I do all those. But of course, Renaissance Rock Orchestra is my bread and butter, the meat and potatoes of what I do and what I want to talk about with the new release and the new record, A Song of Hope 2020. Yeah. So, and the first song from that record is going to be released April 17th. That one's called In My Loving Arms. Have you heard that yet, Pariah?
I have not.
Yeah, that one has Michael James Romeo from Symphony X on guitar. And oh my God, the guitar solo in that song is just unbelievable. It's just out of this world. He's so good. He played 3 tracks on the new record. And I also brought in Christian Brady from Hell Yeah. And Tony Alleman from Juan Crucier's Rat did a couple tracks on it too. So we have 3 different guitar players, but Brian did all the drums. Mark Bowles, all the vocals on the entire record. Unbelievable voice. And I'm sure you know the history of Mark and his work with Yngwie. The multi-platinum trilogy record, of course, was unbelievable. and Mark just killed on that one. But so to have him sing an entire record was really awesome. The last record had 4 different vocalists, including Robin McCauley. Robin did 3 songs on In Times of Old, and he was on our first record too, which was an EP. So having Robin as a part of our history is something that I'm really proud to have him be a part of. His voice is so phenomenal, and he's such a great guy to work with. I was sad to see him get so involved with Black Swan in his own record recently, so that he doesn't really have time to do the Renaissance Rock thing right now. But as we start going out and hopefully get our residency here in Las Vegas, I think there's a pretty good chance that a lot of rock star guest artists are probably going to come do the show with us. So,
who have you not had in Renaissance Rock Orchestra that you really want to get in?
Wow. That's a great question. I love that question. For sure, I've been reaching out to Mike Portnoy over the years, trying to get him involved, but of course he's so busy in so many projects, and I would that's a big bucket list thing to get Mike on a record. If I could, that'd be, unbelievable. When it comes to vocalists, it's so hard to really say anybody else that I'd like to have involved, because Robin and Mark Bowles are so damn good, and I've worked with them for so long that, but I know as we go out and we do the show in the residency, we'll probably be bringing in, it's very possible Robin Zander is going to do some shows, a lot of the rock star caliber people, some of the old guys from Styx would be, I hate to say old guys, I shouldn't say that, but
Greg, we're all old guys these days.
Tell me about it, right?
Yeah, but music keeps us young.
It does, absolutely. Yeah, I love that about it. It's having that goal. That's the creativity is a big thing for me. Being able to create just keeps my spirit alive. It kept me going during COVID. I was so glad to have the opportunity to have the time to do that, rather than doing all the shows and working on all those projects. Another thing that we could possibly talk about, I'm almost uncertain if I should talk about it, but I started working with John Payne from Asia here about 2 months ago, and we were collaborating so well together that he has asked me to write and record the new Asia record with him. So I'm excited about that. Wow. And we're supposed to go out and do a show with Alice Cooper and Lou Gramm on the 24th down in Phoenix. So that's why not? I've signed the contracts. You're always a little uncertain because I was just up in Seattle taking care of my mom and dad. My mom had some hip surgery, and while I was gone doing that, and I didn't even know about this, but John went down and did a show in Texas with Billy Gibbons, who he's been talking about having me do some shows with Asia and all these, his rock star list. But they ended up using Jamie Hosner, another phenomenal keyboard player here in Las Vegas, a good friend of mine. But I didn't even know anything about it. So I was pretty busy with the parents. And John was pretty busy putting together the show and doing rehearsals, I'm sure. But I really haven't touched base with him since I've been back. So it's one of those things you always go, is it still happening, right?
Right. Well, that's really cool.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to that Asia album with you playing.
Thank you. We, my style of writing, coming from Rick Wakeman is really kind of my all-time favorite keyboard player. So I play a lot like that. It's very melodic, a lot of arpeggios, and a very classical style, right? You can say the same thing about Keith Emerson, but his style is a little bit more improvisational, a lot more soloing. Whereas I'm a songwriter, I write songs, and I'm going to put in a keyboard solo every now and then, but overall that writing style seems to be lending itself really good to the Asian material and to working with John Payne. So we put together, he originally invited me over to work on a piece for a TV show, and I went over to his beautiful house here in Las Vegas, and the studio he's been putting together for the last 3 years is really amazing. He's got everything there, all the different kinds of soft synths and a library of keyboard sounds that any keyboardist would just envy. So we used a lot of my sounds and tied them into some of the sounds that he had, and came up with some brilliant things. So I sat down on the keyboard and said, "So what are we doing here?" And he said, "Well, we're going to create something kind of spacey, maybe a little Pink Floyd-ish." And I sat down and I said, "How long is it supposed to be?" He said, 8 minutes is what we're looking for here. And I just started playing, and that's what we used. It was like the first 8 minutes of what I sat down and created. And he and the manager for Asia were just really, really happy with that piece. And oh my gosh, we actually ended up spending more time on it than we should have, because we're both such perfectionists. They wanted everything to be perfect. It actually has 3 or 4 different sections that it moves in and out of that is really, really awesome. I don't know if we'll ever have a chance for the public to hear it, well, until it's released on the TV show, I guess. But maybe after that, we'll have a chance to release it and have people hear it. But it turned out great. I did some very Pink Floyd-ish synth solo things on it that was very cool. And well, John is such an amazing producer. He has so much experience, years and years and years working with so many projects, and he has a great ear, and he's a great writer. So I'm really looking forward to that entire experience, writing and recording the new Asia album. And it's going to be nice to have my name on an Asia album, having followed them and enjoyed their music for years. They sold 14 million records, so I can't complain too much about that that opportunity, right?
Yep.
So, yeah.
Well, that's great. So tell us a little more. Okay, all right. Just to get this out of the way.
Yes.
And I know that some people don't know what Renaissance Rock Orchestra is, and I want to ask you about that. But I've been really enjoying In Times of Old lately. I've been listening to that. I've been really enjoying your playing on that. You've got some really expansive, sweeping intros and suites on there that just it's really nice. It's
thank you.
Operatic in some moments.
Yes.
And I've been really enjoying that. And I just wanted to tell you that before we got too far away from talking about that album.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much. And, I have so much more of that. I've been holding a lot of this material inside myself and in my mental library of future Renaissance rock songs for a couple decades, actually. Right. So
oh, wow.
I have so much more of that, and the direction that Renaissance Rock Orchestra goes is going to be, it's going to take some interesting swerves and curves. For instance, I feel like In Times of Old is in some ways pretty progressive. It definitely has progressive moments and classical rock. And so yes, I love that about In Times of Old too. On the new record, I decided to try to make it a little bit more AOR, a little bit more classic rock sounding, a little more commercial, I guess. And I wanted to do that so I could really capture a more expansive audience worldwide. I talk to people in LA and label people a lot about the future of Renaissance Rock Orchestra and what it is and what it should be. It originally started out as a very Trans-Siberian orchestra template. Me and my best friend and bass player, Mikey Bones, who passed away in 2017. Mikey started the Renaissance Rock Orchestra with me, but it's always been my material and my dream and my vision. As a matter of fact, way back in the 80s in Seattle, actually the 70s, I should say, I had a recording studio in Kent, Washington, pretty close to where Howard Leese from Heart has lived for years and years. And we wrote nothing but our favorite, similar music to our favorite bands. It'd be Yes and Queen and Kansas, Styx. And we had kind of a theme that I had come up with for our music. What are we? What are we going to call ourselves that is unique? And we called our music Renaissance Rock. And so that's something that is a Gregg Fox thing that I've taken with me over the years and brought that into what I've done with the Renaissance Rock for the last decade and expanded it into the Renaissance Rock Orchestra. So In Times of Old had a lot of instrumentals, a lot of very classical, neoclassical metal stylings in it. And I write a lot of that because I have such a classical background on keyboards, 12 years of lessons. And so that is close to my heart and music that I love. And so on in times of old, I just did what I wanted to do, what I wanted to write. Who is Gregg Fox? What is he about? What is Renaissance Rock Orchestra going to be? But yes, I was also trying to follow that Trans-Siberian Orchestra template because of what they created with the genre that they created over the last 15 years, I guess. And when you go see their concerts, even though it's a Christmas show, the music itself and a lot of the records, expand beyond that. And so I just knew that they had created a new demographic of people that would love classical metal. And so that's kind of what I was going for on In Times of Old. And of course was hoping that investors and labels would see what I was doing there and where I was going and would go, yes, it's another Trans-Siberian Orchestra thing, but without Christmas, but with rock stars, amazing, legendary rock musicians. So I thought it was a great marketing move to do that for that record. And at the same time, I got to do what I loved and really what I am. Now, in the same way, the new record, A Song of Hope 2020, is still, straight down the line, Gregg Fox, 80s oriented prog-ish music. We have a song that sounds a lot, very, very much like Queen. If you added Freddie Mercury's voice to it, nobody would know the difference. And I don't feel bad about that because I love the material so much. I feel very proud to be able to write something that people go, wow, that is so beautiful. And it has those qualities that Queen music has of having different sections. It's not quite a Bohemian Rhapsody piece. I feel it as being a little bit more of a ballad, one of their ballad kind of pieces. But yeah, it goes through different swings where I actually go in some ragtime piano in the choruses. And so it has a lot of really fun stuff. I think I sent you the link for that YouTube song too, Pariah. But yeah, that's right. So on the new record, we have the kind of a Queen sounding thing. Our first song that we were talking about, the first single, in My Love and Arms, that will be released April 17th, feels to me like a blend of Van Halen meets Dream Theater, and all these. Right?
Oh, sorry, I was going to say that's a good description because I was listening to that.
You would agree?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's good to hear. Good. Yeah. And I wasn't really trying to write that necessarily. It's just another thing that just flows out of my fingers and the years of playing all the music that I played. But I'm glad you agree with that. I love that. Now, the title track of the record, A Song of Hope, is the last track on the record. And that one has, to me, a lot of Kansas influence.
Yes.
It has a lot of the classical melodies and some breaks, where the band drops out and the vocals carry it for a minute. It's very dynamic in that way. So, so the new record's a lot more commercial. I foresee the future of my songwriting and the Renaissance Rock Orchestra as being a combination of both. I kind of wanted to concentrate on something a little more commercial on this record, just so the labels and the investors and the venues, the casinos, the residencies could go, wow. Because as I was saying earlier, I've been hearing from all these people across the industry how everybody's looking for 80s sounding material.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew I had that in my own way, in my own progressive rock way. So that's what I created on A Song of Hope. So there's no instrumentals on this one, but I'm thinking that I'll probably have A Song of Hope Volume 2. And I think that on that one, I will add at least 2 instrumental numbers that I've been working on, that I have in that mental library, just waiting for the right moment. A couple other things too that I have to get out. One of them is it's a very Emerson, Lake and Palmer-ish type epic synth piece, very progressive, with a lot of great changes in it. So the Renaissance Rock Orchestra is always going to have those epic sweeping moments that it seems like you enjoyed off in times of old.
Yeah, and I really enjoyed the new songs. I've always liked variety. Okay, I mean, you can listen to Motley Crue, you can listen to Poison, you can listen to Metallica, but you need somebody out of left field. You need something really different in there
Sure.
to break
Yeah.
it up. And that's what I'm hearing in your music. And yeah, I'm hearing little bits of Kansas and bits of Queen, and but it's everybody, music influences every musician, right? So,
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
but it's something all its own. There's influences, but it's something all its own. And
Perfect.
I'm really enjoying your music. And I'm glad you mentioned Trans-Siberian Orchestra, because I didn't want to make a comparison if you weren't feeling it was there, but I'm listening to your music and I'm like, this is great. I want to keep listening to this, but I really want to see them live. I want this experience live.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
The music has that quality that is so different and so Trans-Siberian that when it is played live, I think it's going to even take on a greater life and a greater energy. And yeah, we've mostly done one showcase here in Vegas at this point. And so having a chance to play that material and rehearse it repeatedly, we've had numerous rehearsals because there's been several opportunities where we almost went out and did a festival here or there. And for one reason or the other, with a list of artists like I have, the budget, there's serious budget constraints. These guys need to get paid top dollar to do what they do. They deserve it, and they have too many opportunities. So I have to make sure that it's a situation that pays well enough to support, taking the entire band and violins and violas, cellos on the road to do a festival or something like that. That's one of the reasons that our management guys and myself for the last couple of years have been concentrating primarily on a Las Vegas residency, because to take a new unbranded show on the road is so expensive, and to be in one place and to have the world come to Las Vegas to see it seems like a perfect scenario, right?
yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And Vegas residencies have really opened up the last decade or so for rock music. It's not all Wayne Newton anymore.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, rock and roll is the most popular thing. I mean, playing for Raiding the Rock Vault, subbing for Michael T on the numerous occasions that I have, it has become the number one rated musical in Las Vegas for about the last 7 years, I think. And that's the reason why. I mean, audiences grow and change and grow older. Cities like Las Vegas, a city that is all entertainment and all tourism, is going to change and grow over the years too. And so I got here at just the right time for rock and roll to kind of take over, being the most important music that those demographics, as they grow older and come to Vegas, want to hear. Of course, the young kids are going to come here, and we know what that's all about and what they think they want to hear. But then again, a lot of them too know that we really experienced the finest renaissance of music in history, the 70s and 80s. So my daughter's the same way. She's like, well, she loves Queen. She loves Led Zeppelin, because that's what she was. Well, Kansas too.
You raised her right.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, my daughter the same. I really got her into the Doors for a while. She was in a Doors phase.
Nice.
And she was like, wow, this is poetry.
Excellent.
I was like, yeah, and it's a three-piece band.
The old stuff, where it all came from, and I'm old enough that I was just a little bit too young to actually be there, and thank God, or else I wouldn't be able to keep doing what I'm doing now. I'd be past my prime for sure. So I was a part of that whole explosion, that cultural explosion that was there with the Doors and Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young. I mean, that was a huge influence to me when I was a young man. I mean, they were monstrously big and talented, and it was so sad to see what happened to them and what they thought of their own material and their influence over the world. But it was dynamic and powerful, and it was a really positive thing. At the time, it was, positive songs, things about coming together as a culture musically and otherwise, in every aspect. But yeah, so happy that I have all those things in my DNA to draw upon. My musical DNA.
Was Alice Cooper one of your influences?
I lost your Pariah. Now, try me now.
Check, check, check.
I gotcha. Yeah.
Okay.
I think that was my cat Bubba. I've been starting to make Bubba a little famous on Instagram because he's such a character. He's a little tabby, and yeah, he gets himself into trouble. And he just unplugged my my power strip over there. So
I had a cat that did that too. So
Really?
I have a cat, and she unplugged the cord from the back of the interface that the mic runs into.
Literally unplugged a cord.
Yes.
Oh my God.
I don't know. Maybe it was loose and she just stepped on it the right way, but it was during an interview and I didn't know.
Wow.
Because I use AirPods to communicate, through to Zoom,
Yeah.
and and then the mic picks up my voice and Zoom records your voice, and
Yeah.
suddenly I have a full interview where I'm silent.
Oh no. No.
So
Oh,
I
hate
had to go back and lip sync myself for
Really?
40 minutes.
God, you're kidding. That must have taken hours and hours, I would think.
It did. But I mean, I was glad I had the video, but
I'm sure-
yeah.
I'm sure you couldn't quite match it correctly. You probably had to just kind of follow along and think to yourself, this is what I was saying there, right?
Yeah, a couple of times. And, so the video gets a little out of sync. The audio only interview podcast was fine, obviously, but, yeah. And I did. I was upfront about it. I just told people when they were looking at the video, here's a spot where the cat had unplugged it and I couldn't match it up.
Oh, so funny.
So, yeah.
I have so many great stories. We could go on and on. We may have to share this for another time. But after I was done working in Seattle with the guys at Heart and working with Pamela Moore from Queensryche and Howard Leese from Heart, Roger Fisher from Heart, Mike DeRosa from Heart, I kind of thought rock and roll was dead. So I bought a sailboat and I sailed around the Bahamas for 7 years. But I didn't have a keyboard with. Yeah, it was an unbelievable bucket list experience. It's so weird when I think about it now, because in some ways I wish I had that time back, because if you think of what I've done, when I got off the boat, it was within 90 days, Foreigner asked me to go out on tour with them. Now I did not do that, but they asked me, and within wasn't even 4 months, I played for Miley Cyrus at the Academy of Country Music Awards in front of 35 million people on CBS. So a lot of big and wonderful things happened. And that experience being on that boat changed me, Pariah. I had been hanging on coattails, doing things with Queensryche, doing side work with Heart. But when it's just you and the weather and the ocean, it changes you. And it made me want to do my own thing. And made me a lot stronger. I came back and people looked at me and they sensed something different about me. So you've changed. What is it? What is different about you? I know I know who I am. I know what I want to do, and I believe in myself. I know I can do it myself. But so I wish I had that 7 years back, because can you imagine where Renaissance Rock Orchestra would be right now if I hadn't gone sailing for 7 years and I'd started all this 7 years earlier. But then again, without that experience, maybe I would have never done what I'm doing. Maybe I would have never became the person that would create this music. So yeah, but I wish I had the 7 years back. At the same time, you got to go, how many people would dream of doing what I did? And how many people would be, have the guts and confidence to do it, or even the ability to do it, whether it's family or kids or money or whatever. So yeah. In some ways, I wish I had the 7 years back. In some ways, I would never give it up.
Now, Greg, you were telling me you've got a bass player that we should really hear about, somebody with a really good pedigree. Who's your bass player?
His name is Greg Smith. And Greg is phenomenal. I'm so happy to have him on the record. It's kind of an interesting story. And I think I touched on this a little bit, that when I first started the project, my best friend and my bass player was a bass player by the name of Mikey Bones Gerbino. And I was, writing the music, and Mikey was really liking a lot. And we went out and saw some Trans-Siberian Orchestra shows. And he was like looking at me going, you could do that, couldn't you? You could write that. I'm going, yeah, I think I could. Yeah. It sounded like it'd be pretty fun, but let's not make it a Christmas show. But anyway, he knew a lot of guys in the band, and Mikey knew so many people. He was from back in Queens. He was an East Coast guy. So he came up with everybody that we all know, Steve Vai, Bon Jovi, the whole bit. So he had a huge list of friends that were musicians. And so when we first started rolling and recording and getting this kind of new idea to bring in rock star talent, legacy artists, which was kind of our play on taking Trans-Siberian Orchestra to a new place. Mikey was the perfect guy to have involved because everybody loves Mikey and he knew everybody. So he started introducing me to all of his friends, and we started bringing them into the band. And one of his friends is Greg Smith. But of course, Mikey was the bass player. I didn't need another bass player. And Mikey and Greg have been friends for years and years and years. But Mikey passed away in 2017. And I was very honored on this record to have Greg say, I really want to be a part of this project, just not only because I love the music so much, but to do it for Mikey, to carry on his spirit in the band. And as a matter of fact, Greg used a couple of Mikey Bones's basses that Mikey's widow Tracy had given to Greg Smith after his passing. And Greg has a history that is so phenomenal. That's why he really needs to be mentioned here for sure. Yeah, Greg has played with Alice Cooper, Billy Joel. These days he plays with Tommy James and the Shondells, but he's played with Alan Parsons, Ted Nugent. I'm sure I'm forgetting somebody. He played with Dokken and Rainbow. The list is so long that I really need to have it in front of me, right? It's pretty impressive. He's an amazing bass player, and to have him play on the entire record, I was just so excited to have him be involved in the project. And he's very enthusiastic as a player, and we did a lot of writing together, back and forth. What should we do here? What should this bass part be like? And so he really wrote phenomenal bass lines and melodies for the songs. And it was so great to be able to do that with Greg. And so I'm just very grateful to have him involved. Thank you, Greg. And your work on the record is really phenomenal. Everybody needs to hear it. Yeah, the bass players will really enjoy it. I think even the non-bass players will really enjoy it.
I do.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. A good bass line cannot be denied, right? It can make or break us. Yeah, there's some
that low end is always one of the things that really stands out in rock and roll.
Yeah. There's two things that kind of stand out to me on A Song of Hope that Greg did. I should say A Song of Hope 2020, the title of the entire record. The title track, A Song of Hope, really lent itself to a lot of melodic playing in kind of a Kansas style. And Greg really nailed that one in a beautiful way. Also, there's a piece called The Universal Dance off the record. And I love the song. A lot of people don't quite get the song in that it's a little different. It's a little bit ethereal. It's a little bit of a Floydish meets Yes, a little bit. The choruses are very Yes. I think you'll hear that in the background harmonies. Oh, another thing that needs to be talked about is Mark Bowles' harmonies on this record. The last record and the record before that, we didn't have a whole lot of harmonies in the music. And so I really felt we needed to put a lot more time into that. The pieces didn't really lend themselves so much to harmonies like these songs do, like a Kansas piece, like a Queen piece, like a Yes styled piece, really lends itself to great background harmonies. And Mark Bowles, his voice is just so phenomenal. His range, it's worth hearing this record just to listen to the background harmonies. Really phenomenal. Some of them are in the stratosphere, and the Universal Dance definitely has that. It has that yes quality, but Greg Smith's bass parts on the Universal Dance are very good too. That dance is kind of that song is kind of a very rhythmic. It's about the planet spinning and about life in the universe, and it has kind of this repetitive, kind of bluesish riff that keeps building the song forward, and it's really a nice one. Greg killed on that song too. I could go on and on forever, of course, about this stuff, Pariah. You know that, right?
Oh yeah, I'm sure. So I wanted to ask you. You were talking a lot about your influences. Was out and we were talking about the '60s and early '70s. Was Alice Cooper one of your influences?
As a keyboard player, no, not necessarily. As a high schooler, of course, because those songs are there, and I wasn't a professional musician at that point. I was just rocking out, enjoying music. So from that aspect, definitely Alice was a part of what I listened to and grew up with. So, I mean, how can you not love Alice? But it's not what I particularly listen to a lot, and what I foresaw myself ever writing and doing, as a pianist and a keyboard player. But of course, at that point, I didn't even know who I was and what I would become, and that music would end up being my entire career, my whole life. It was just something that you'd think, wow, that'd be awesome someday. But it took, decades of real work out in the streets, coming up in rock bands and playing every cover song you could ever imagine. So, to develop what would be, and I just feel so grateful at this point in my life that not only myself and my writing style, but where my career has taken me, has allowed me to do the things that I'm doing, and to have the kind of attention that audiences are giving it. Audiences have really developed a lot. They're looking for that unique music that you were talking about, something different. Yeah. And so now is just such a perfect time in so many ways. When I was younger, I started taking piano lessons at 5. My mom and dad were the organist and the choir director in church. So I had a very, very musical family. We were always doing quartets in the Sunday services every Sunday and practicing those all week long. There was always a piano in the house. Mom was always playing it. Dad was always singing. We were always gathered around the piano. So I had that huge musical influence in my family that made me want to play. So they got me on lessons at 5 years old. I had 12 years of lessons and then went on to get my degree in music. But so it's always changed. But when I started getting to the point where my playing abilities had developed enough to start writing songs, which was in junior high school, I immediately started writing and was kind of off to the races. Now, I also played violin in the orchestra. So I've always been fascinated by the sound that orchestras and symphonies create. The complexity of the tonalities and the complexity of the arrangements always fascinated me. So as a young man, of course, I started out loving, as a keyboard player, Deep Purple, John Lord, those Hammond sounds that are just so heavy. It's just, so that was a huge influence. And Led Zeppelin, they also reach into those progressive and symphonic directions occasionally, right? Mm-hmm. And so I loved Led Zeppelin. And but it was when I first heard the music of Jethro Tull and Yes that I really knew where my heart would always lie. And it's always been there. Kansas would have to be in that category too, of course. But it was Tull and Yes that first really captured my inspiration early on as a keyboardist and a songwriter. And I was nowhere near having the ability to be able to write anything that would compare to that music at the time, and even to this day. I mean, who could do what Tull and Yes does? Only that combination of songwriters and musicians could ever be what that is, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they can inspire a whole new generation of musicians like they did with you.
Yes.
The reason I asked about Alice Cooper was he just put out a new album called Detroit Stories, where every song is a love letter to somebody that influenced him. And in the new material from the new album, from you, that's what I'm hearing. You know, we were talking about your influences. I'm hearing,
Yeah.
love letters to your influences, it seems like.
Yeah, you're very, very right about that. That's really cool that he did that on a new record, and that's exactly what I've done with my music. It comes naturally. I haven't had to try to do it. It's just what comes out of me because it's what I've heard so much. I was a little bit as a younger man. I was I don't know what the word is. I was very particular about the music I listened to and at this point in time, I couldn't particularly say that. Oh, I'm thinking about when I was in high school and the brothers, help me here. My mind's gone blank. The Gibbs. Yeah.
Barry Gibb and the Bee Gees.
The Bee Gees. Thank you. Yeah. My mind went completely blank on the Bee Gees because, it's not really part of my history. Now, of course, I realize how great, because I love all kinds of music too, and how great they are in some ways. But I was so bourgeois about my classical influences and about the music of Yes that, everybody was listening to the Bee Gees and they had so many hits. And I was just, I would listen to nothing but Yes and nothing but Kansas and nothing but Emerson, Lake and Palmer. And if I play this for you and you don't get it, there's something wrong with you. This is kind of funny. So yeah, I was very, somewhat shallow in that. That was the music I loved. It was the music that really moved me emotionally. And to me, it seemed like it was beyond so many other things on some spiritual levels. I mean, you have to admit that there's a spiritual nature to Yes, certainly. And you'd have to say the same thing would be true of Led Zeppelin, very mystical and powerful spiritually. So yeah, that's all I listened to, and it's all I cared about for many, many years. I would listen to the radio and hear songs on the radio, and which would include Alice before that time period for me. But yeah, so it's not a wonder that I write what I write, because I didn't want to listen to anything else. I was so moved by that music that I listened to those Kansas albums and Queen albums, Styx albums, and Yes albums over and over and over. It's been the soundtrack to the majority of my life. It's still my go-to music almost every day. So yeah, I've really been enjoying the new Transatlantic record. I don't know if you've heard that yet, Pariah.
I have not.
I actually drove my car to Seattle to help my parents through kind of a rough bump in the road for them at their age. And so the sound system is really amazing in my MX-5 Miata. And I listened to the new Transatlantic album almost the entire way there, the entire way back. I love it. Mike Portnoy, of course, is kind of massive in that it has so many mood swings and so many different styles. So it's the kind of thing that takes more than one listen. And I love a record like that you really have to let soak into your entire soul before you really understand it and get it not only sonically, but lyrically and in so many ways. So it's one of those records. Yeah.
Oh, good. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. And I think that's one of the features of what you were talking about, the mystical music, like Yes and Led Zeppelin is part of it is it doesn't get old. You can, every time you listen, you're hearing something else, some other nuance.
Yeah.
And that's part of the mystery for me for a lot of those albums.
Absolutely. Yes. And even though a lot of that music I listen to quite often, the Yes, the standard Toll albums that I love so much, which would include Thick as a Brick, of course. But there's certain albums that kind of get away from you a little bit, that you hear songs from because they're played often enough on the radio and what you listen to. And I'm thinking in terms of Led Zeppelin right now, particularly when I went down to do the first mix, and that's a whole nother story. The first mix of this record down in Phoenix was done by Jeremy Parker, who has many platinum records with Evanescence, Slipknot, Mudhoney, and I was kind of going through a relationship change in my life at that time, and I just happened to decide to ride my Harley. The weather was getting nice enough. The weather was still nice at that point because that was back in, I guess, October. And so I rode my Harley down to Phoenix to mix the new record. And of course, I was in this zone, this excitement about mixing the new Renaissance Rock Orchestra record. But I just kind of drive. There's something about driving through the desert, driving through forests of Joshua trees, the sun, the desert, all of that. It really is perfect for Led Zeppelin. And so I kind of started at one and just listened to every record. And I haven't really done that with Zeppelin for a number of years, where I heard the entire record in one sitting, and you get that sense of where that album takes you. And I love that since there's so many records that do that take you to a different place. But it was an amazing, magical experience. The sun was setting over the mountains, the wind's in my hair. Oh, the power of Zeppelin. It was a very spiritual and a cathartic experience at the moment, and kind of set me up in a real powerful way to go into the studio, which was really a phenomenal experience to hear all these sounds that we're coming together and mixing them together to create the record, because we have everybody do the music in their own studios. So it's rarely that we're all together in one studio. It has happened on several occasions with drummers. I remember we brought in in times of old, we brought in Brent Fitz from Slash and Alice Cooper to do the drums on a song called Alexander's Symphony, a very epic TSO type piece. And that was wonderful. We also brought in Robin McCauley to do the vocals, and we do that at the Tone Factory here in Las Vegas. I want to give them a little bit of a shout out, because Vinny Castaldo, the owner and engineer over there, was very crucial to helping get the first two Renaissance Rock Orchestra records done. And I'm very grateful to Vinny for that and the job he did. I mean, they're great sounding records. But the majority of the time, we do have everybody track their own stuff in their own place. And that can be challenging in some ways when it comes to trying to get that collaborative effect and trying to translate what it is that you want from that artist. The sound, the style, the melody. Sometimes I'll write it out and I'll send it. Sometimes I'll just try to describe it in an email, and I'll actually write out notes in the email and try to describe breaks and things like that. The hardest part with recording in people's the separate parts in people's different studios is the drums, of course, because everybody has different tonalities on their kits, different tonalities with their microphones, different tonalities with the room they're recording in. And so trying to get all those different drum sounds to blend together was really tough in times of old. That's why it was so nice in A Song of Hope, the new record, to kind of have a band. I was trying to create more of a definitive Renaissance Rock Orchestra sound for this record. One voice, one vocalist, one drummer, one bass player. I was originally hoping to have one guitarist, but we ended up having three, which turned out to be fantastic. But we still have that core band, that core sense of abilities and styles that created what A Song of Hope 2020 is. And so it's a very, very cool thing. And of course, all the drums came from Brian Tichy in his studio. So you kind of, once we got that blend and tweaked it the right direction to get the tones that we were looking for, it was the same in all the songs. So it was less challenging. Yeah.
Okay. Well, tell me So you were talking about doing a residency and travel and then doing tour dates. Do you have a residency set up yet? Is it something?
I would say at this point that I could publicly announce that we're very close.
Okay.
One of the great things that I've been so blessed with about this project, and it amazes a lot of the artists that I work with that work in so many other tremendous projects, but there's something about the uniqueness of the music I write and what Renaissance Rock Orchestra is that has made it be pretty easy for investors to understand. They see the vision of what it is and what it could be and what it should be. The same thing that you were talking about when you were talking about how this music needs to be performed live. They hear that also. So we've always had the ability to have a lot of money kind of come our way to do rehearsals and to create the future of what Renaissance Rock Orchestra is going to be. But we are in a situation now that is full of opportunity. What's happening with COVID and with the pandemic and Las Vegas has really turned out to be a great opportunity for me and for Renaissance Rock Orchestra particularly, because all the casinos have been shut down. Because of that, the shows that were staying alive because they were doing shows and the income was there, they could feed their talent and their performers. A lot of those have fallen through the cracks and will no longer be there. And because of that, a lot of rooms are available now. A lot of venues that might not have been open to a new act because they had something already and it was easy and it was working, have opened up and are available. That being said, it is always a challenge because what I foresee for the project is so big, it's so massive that it's almost of a Cirque quality, a Cirque nature. It's pretty massive, production-wise, and in a lot of other creative ways. It could end up having different types of performing artists. That could include aerialists and other things, just to really create a magical show, like a Cirque show would be. But of course, a show like that is a enormous financial responsibility and need. To go in to do a residency, you have to have an operating budget and capital for your show to last a minimum of 6 months. And to pay something like that is a multi-million-dollar operation. And we have multi-million-dollar pro formas and budgets built and interest from investors. I can't say that we actually have one that is on the hook and ready to go and says, they haven't given us that letter of credit, which is probably what we'll need to get a residency, right? Yeah. Okay. We'll have to say, yes, we have this letter of credit for a minimum of $2 million. And so, but we have several people that have been interested. Right before COVID struck, we were pretty much in place on an investment aspect to go do it. We didn't have the room yet. We hadn't decided what room it was going to be, and we hadn't started negotiations. But the guy with the money was there. And of course, with COVID, that went away. And as often happens with investors, the money goes different directions. But yeah, so we have several people that are very interested in supporting the project financially. And at this point, there are a couple different rooms that we are considering going into. It's possible, it's so scary to say this because you never know what's going to happen. You hate to make promises that don't actually come to fruition. But yeah, we have 2 residency options. One of them small and would be a great way to start, just to kind of get the wheels on the bus, to get out there early. So many of the big shows that are coming to town, whether it's Chicago, Styx, these shows are kind of slated for September. Everybody's talking about September. Some of the things are talking about the end of the year. But I think it'd be a great thing to have Renaissance Rock Orchestra be out there within the next 90 days, 120 days possibly, to to kind of start building the brand and helping some of these rooms that are going, yeah, we're ready, but we're not really ready to do a full-on massive Trans-Siberian Orchestra show yet. So yeah, I have a small room that we're negotiating with and talking with that would be great. And I hope that happens. But also I have a larger residency option that is very exciting. That would be a huge branding opportunity. And I think it's a 5,000 seat type venue. So I'm not saying we'd be able to fill it with 5,000 people off the bat with COVID and things, but if we could start even with 1,000 to 1,500, it would be a pretty exciting way to get Renaissance Rock Orchestra on the road post COVID, right? I mean, yeah, to have those kind of numbers and a room, a residency situation that could provide that right out of the gate is pretty exciting. Since it seemed, like there was no hope for anything for so long, when will we ever play again? Well, when anybody do shows, when will Live Nation start doing shows again? So, so much of that's been up in the air, and nobody wants to jump first, when you're talking about venues and agents and touring companies. They're all waiting to see what happens with COVID, with vaccinations, with the entertainment industry. But there are some really good opportunities. They're waiting out there for Renaissance Rock Orchestra, and I think for Las Vegas in general. Another thing that has happened, in my opinion, Las Vegas is really set up to be in a perfect storm kind of scenario right now. And this is unfortunate for so many people around the country and around the world. But due to the loss of the entertainment industry and live shows, so many venues have closed down in so many cities, and many of them will not come back. They won't be able to. They weren't able to survive that loss of income. It's a horrible thing for music as a whole, but it does put those of us in Las Vegas, and particularly a guy with a really great show and really amazing musicians and a really big dream, in a really great position.
For those of you only listening, Gregg just pointed at himself.
Yeah, so the way I see it is most likely what's going to happen, all these people have been dying to see shows. They've been dying to get out of their house. They haven't been able to. And when we all truly can do that, when we get to that point that the gates open, there's not going to be as many shows in their local neighborhood, their city, as there used to be. Where do you think they're going to want to come?
Well, and I agree. And if I can add to that, the world is working remotely. People are, it's not just entertainment venues. Business offices are closing down or scaling back significantly. Yeah. So people aren't, we're kind of reversing, or we're kind of going back to the 1940s and 50s, where there was the trend to move out of the cities into the suburbs.
Sure, yeah, right.
Because we're all working at home now. Yeah. And I think that's going to have an effect on where you go for entertainment. If you live in a high-rise downtown, you go down the corner, there's your corner bar. 2 blocks away, you see everything at this at this concert venue. You go to nightclubs that are 3 blocks away, and your whole life is right there within the city. Well, now, if you're not living in the city and you're out in the burbs, there are going to be some smaller venues that pop up, sure, but then where do you really go when you want the full experience that you can't get on a stage that's tight for a 5-piece?
Right. True. Yeah. And you can't even get it in the closest city to you anymore in a lot of cases. Of course, we know a lot of the large venues will come back. There will be places that all those burbs people will be able to see shows. But once again, Las Vegas will be a part of that entertainment capital thing that it's always had. And people are dying to get out of the house and dying to socialize and dying to see shows and dying to see some people. And
Yeah.
so we really are in a really fantastic opportunity, I think, in Las Vegas right now because of that. So I'm trying to make sure that we are prepared. Renaissance Rock Orchestra is prepared to take advantage of that. Trying to get the ducks in the row with the performers, the budgets, the investors, the capital, so that we can truly start negotiating with these venues. And we have begun to do all of that. So
That's really good to hear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really,
So
it's an exciting thing to say after many years of working on this project, and 3 records out now. And yes, we have rehearsed on numerous occasions, and we've done our showcase at Vamped here in Las Vegas, which was a great experience, but we really haven't had a chance to get out and do this show on an ongoing basis. So it's very exciting to say that we could potentially be so close, that the time is actually happening. And for such an awful thing that we've gone through economically and emotionally and in our families, to have an event like that put Renaissance Rock Orchestra in a position that we're in right now is truly unique. And yeah, I'm very, very excited about it. I wish that we hadn't go through what we all went through to have the availability that's happening right now for this project. But yeah, I'm excited that we're there.
Yeah, COVID was and continues to be a horrible thing, but it's like a wildfire. It makes way for new growth.
Correct.
And there's always a downside, but there's an upside to a situation like this as well. So I'm glad to see that, that could work in your favor.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes, we shall see, and we shall see soon, I think. Yeah.
And the world is hungry for live music. And then you get a band like Renaissance Rock Orchestra with the music I'm hearing, and there's some music that you can just sit back and listen to with headphones on and just listen to the record. Yeah. And that's a lot of music. And then there's some music that it's like that. There's music like yours that you can do that with, but it just makes you hungrier to see it live.
See it actually performed. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. Yeah. There's something about symphonic music. Of course it's like that, because it's a part of the nature of the song itself is that it has the violins and the cellos and the strings, and it's that inherent nature inside the piece itself, the way it was composed, to have those components that make it better live. Yeah, that absolutely make it better live. Yeah, to watch all those different pieces moving. Yeah.
So I'm really looking forward to seeing Renaissance Rock Orchestra live. Whether I have to come to Vegas or you guys are on the road, I just want to see you live. I want to see all of this in motion in front of me. Yeah. As the music's washing over me. I don't want to just listen to the music. I want to see it and experience it.
Visual of it, the visual of the performers. I mean, with outstanding performers and players, soloists and vocalists like that. Yeah, seeing it live, the emotion of it, the perfection and intricacies of a brilliant solo by George Lynch and by Bumblefoot and by Michael James Romeo is a remarkable thing to witness, and it's very moving. So yeah, that's going to be a very powerful thing. I can't wait for you to see that, Pariah. Yeah.
Well, keep me informed.
I will,
and I'll keep my listeners informed about some of those things, those fires you got, or those irons you got in the fire, and when it actually pans out and people can come see you.
Yes, absolutely, I will. Hopefully, it will be soon. Yeah.
I hope so. In the meantime, where can people check out Renaissance Rock Orchestra? What are your socials? What's your website?
Yeah, it's pretty easy. Everything's Renaissance Rock Orchestra, so you can do that on Facebook and find us there. And of course, Gregg Fox, my own website, Gregg Fox Music. I always have a lot of stuff there. Instagram, Renaissance Rock Orchestra. You'll see a lot of videos, hear a lot of our new music, a lot of the interviews and things that we've been doing with radio stations. I'm I'm sure that we'll have yours on there too, and on our YouTube channel soon, I hope. So yeah, go to YouTube particularly. Yeah, we could use a lot of help there. We just started the YouTube channel and started taking it seriously just in the last 2 or 3 months. So we have a long way to go to try to get it to where it needs to be, but it's working really well. We have of course, we need everybody to subscribe. We need to build that subscriber base. And I'm releasing new content on YouTube every Tuesday and every Friday. So there's a lot of new stuff to see there. New videos, new music, old music, lyric videos, interviews, a lot of fun things. And people seem to really be enjoying it because the views are starting to pick up pretty exponentially. So that's very exciting. But please also go hear us on Spotify. Now on Spotify, you'll only be able to hear the last 2 records. The new one is not there yet. I would like to release it there, but we're in negotiations with a couple different label situations, and you know how that goes. They want to make sure that they have the ability to release it, and I understand that. And the reason, that's a whole nother kind of story and situation too. A lot of people have told me, well, why do you need a label anymore? Just do it yourself. Be your own label. And there's so many people doing that. I think that's what will happen with the new Asia album, that it's going to be, well, and when you've sold 14 million records and you have that kind of fan base, it's very easy to do that. I personally think that I need the support that a label can offer, mostly by their following, by their social media following, to be out on their pages, with several 100,000 followers at the very least, is going to help brand this project a lot. So that's why I've chosen to try to get distribution through one of the labels, and I'm still searching for the right one and the right deal.
Okay. Yeah. I am excited. So, I've liked this new music quite a lot. I liked the last album a lot. Boy, but you made a fan of me.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Thank you, Pariah. I appreciate that. That means a lot from a guy that is so involved with so many different great artists and has such a history of what's going on in the industry. So,
well, thank you.
Yeah.
So, Gregg Fox, creator, composer, and keyboardist from Renaissance Rock Orchestra. Thank you so much for talking to me. I have really enjoyed speaking with you.
I had a great time with you too. It was a great musical conversation, and of course, I always love talking about that, but I really enjoyed it a lot. So thank you for having me on, Pariah.
Great. And I wish you all the luck with Renaissance Rock Orchestra and that label deal and the residency.
Thank you. Yes, we'll take all the vibes we can get, please. And once again, the labels anymore, all they look at is numbers. They look at social media numbers. So yeah, please follow us on Facebook. Please follow us on Spotify. Please subscribe to us on YouTube. Those things will help get this out there at a venue near you, or at least here in Las Vegas, so you can come see us here.
Remember to hear the music discussed in this interview. Stream the on-demand Hard, Heavy, and Hair show at pariahrocks.com.
That's PARIAHROCKS.com.
Also hit pariahrocks.com to stream or listen on a radio station near you. The regular 2-hour Hard, Heavy, and Hair show with me, Pariah Burke. Hard, Heavy, and Hair is your weekly dose of hard rock, heavy metal, and hair bands from the 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, 20-teens, and today, including the latest new releases, your old favorites, and deep cuts and rare hair, along with rock news and trivia.